You're listening to Live Wild Radio, the part-time adventure podcast.
Join us as we explore how outdoor adventures build mind, body, and spirit.
Welcome back to Live Wild Radio. This episode brought to you by Great Lakes Gear, our favorite kettlebell people. Fitness is something we're going to talk about today. And, you know, nothing is better for your fitness than setting up a home gym. So for all of your gym needs, whether it is kettlebells, which are our favorite, dumbbells, bands, barbells, all that stuff. How much is the discount, Catherine?
10%.
If you go to greatlakesgear.com and order anything, use promo code LIVEWILD and save 10% on your order. That is awesome. And they've got like some free shipping promos going on, which for shit that weighs a lot is kind of important. So, you know, and you'll see why having a home gym is so important during this episode. For those of you who have been longtime listeners, we welcome you back. We've been gone for a little while. It's been a busy bunch of months. You know, we're running into the thing where, you know, Live Wild Radio is kind of like a side thing. But we have family and we have jobs and...
unwanted executorship roles.
Yep. in the states and things. And we had
to deal with. Yeah.
And had to become like... legally literate.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Legally literate. Yeah, so we've so far this year been to Disney and Mexico.
Yeah, Winston's losing his edge.
Yeah, I'm the badass adventure guy now. You know, what I will say at Disney though, I am the oldest of the bunch, and I am the only one that didn't have sore feet or blisters.
I didn't have sore feet or blisters.
At Disney?
No.
Sore knees.
Yeah, but
they're, you know, the kids had blisters, you know.
Yeah.
You just had blisters in Mexico?
Yeah, it was really embarrassing.
Yeah.
For all my backpacking hiking experience, I should have known.
Just walking around.
Not cotton socks in hot weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
stupid.
Catherine's feet were
brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, so lots have been going on and had some health issues, big ones with my knees. My knees have, yeah. This is a very appropriate episode because my focus right now, both of ours, has always been health and fitness, but now more than ever. And we think a lot of people need this kind of perspective and insight and some tips and tricks. And it's actually something, by the way, that we're going to be offering more details on. In fact, today's episode is called Turning Back the Clock. You know, we're talking about just because you are your age most people tend to biologically are older.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for that, really.
No, you should be younger than your birth certificate says. Internally.
Right.
Right. You what you want is to look from the neck down, because there's not a lot you can do, you know, with the gray hair and the face, other than the Botoxes and stuff, which is horrendous. But from the neck down, you know, if you're middle-aged or older, you should look 20 years younger than you are. That is sort of the goal I have, right? When I'm 90, I'm a fit 70-year-old. Like, you know, I look like a wizened gnome in my face, you know, something from Harry Potter. But, you know, from the neck down, I want to be able to do shit. And one of the things that sort of led to this, right? Like, obviously, anybody who's listened knows that I'm a personal trainer outside of, you know, the outdoorsy stuff. Like, that's sort of one of my businesses. And so we talk about it, you know, semi-regularly. You know, I think our first one was barbells and backpacks, how to train for backpacking. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I've run into over the last 6 months or so is the number, in my case, it's men I've been talking to, but, you know, I think this probably applies to women as well. People who are unhappy with how they feel, used to be vital, vibrant, energetic, kind of butt kickers at life. And they run into the thing where they're just like, what happened to me? And on the one hand, like, I feel bad, but on the other, it's like, hey, come here. I can show you how not to do that anymore. Like, how to feel better. Yeah. Right. And it's been so prevalent because I talk to the public all the time, right? Working in an outdoor store, right? I run into probably hundreds of people a day. And we just end up having conversations, and the amount of times I'm hearing this, right? It's like, man, I don't even have energy to play with my kids. Right. Or like, by the time I've got grandkids, I'm not going to be able to pick them up. And they don't have, like, it's not like they've been in some big car accident or, anything like that. It's just that inevitable decline that happens with age unless you proactively do something about it. Right? Yeah,
because you were saying that by the time you're 30, for every decade that goes by, you lose what percentage of your muscle?
About 5%.
Yeah.
Women, it's a tiny bit lower, but they have less muscle to begin with. So, right. And so you run into that thing where, 2 decades, so now you're 50. Well, that's 10% of your muscle mass has just gone away. And the less muscle mass you have, the less strength you have. And also you run into the thing where the less muscle you have, the lower your metabolism is going to be. There's all of these, sort of second order effects that come from a decrease in muscle mass, right? The less muscle you have, the easier you get fat, or the harder it is to burn fat. So it's one of these things where getting on top of these, there's sort of two approaches. One is never lose muscle and never get fat, right? That's the ideal, right? You don't have to ever go on a diet if you've never gotten fat.
Right.
But then the second, and this is the part that I see so much hope in, is you look at studies that have been done on elderly in nursing homes. They get them strength training, they double their strength in 6 weeks. Yeah. Right? So if somebody...
Newbie gains.
Yeah, but if somebody in their 70s or 80s can still make progress... Yeah. If you're 40, you're 50, even 60.
Absolutely. Like I remember when my mom was recovering from chemotherapy for breast cancer, and it put her in ICU. Like, she conflicted with her. They didn't know that she had rheumatoid arthritis, so it just totally went against all that. Anyway, so she was in ICU, passed away. They brought her back, but she was in the hospital bed for about a month, and she didn't have a lot of strength to begin with, so she couldn't walk. But it was incredible that the physiotherapy that they gave her, which was, of course, every day. I can't remember how long it took. This was about 10 years ago, but she walked out of there faster and better than she did walking in. Like, even when she was fine, So it was amazing to see that progress. And I always try to remind her, see what you can do, even when you're, as you're saying, in a very poor state. Yeah. So there's newbie gains for everybody, regardless of your age. And I get the whole thing of trying to lift up your kids. I remember 10 years ago, I couldn't do that. I was, 230 pounds and had not worked out ever, not strength trained. I'd done yoga 3 days a week, actually, which was really quite good because it was body weight. And it was a more, not relaxing yoga, it was power yoga. So that was good. It was something. And even that helped me with my neck issues. I remember I was seeing a chiropractor 3 days a week, and it didn't do anything for me. It didn't work for me. But when I did yoga, that seemed to work itself out. So exercise all around is really important. And most recently, let's talk a bit about exercise is really important, but just to give you a bit of background on myself and my perspective, so not everybody knows this. So again, as I mentioned, it was really not until Winston and I got together about 8 years ago that I started strength training. And it was out of desperation because of the situation with my knees. I was told they were in really bad shape. Bone on bone, the right knee would need a knee replacement. I'm ideal candidate for it, but at the time I was only 40, way too young. Need to be ideally 60. And my life back then was very difficult walking downstairs. When I encountered that, that's when I knew there was a problem that I needed to deal with. And I went to him and I was ready. I was ready to do something because it had to get better. And I prioritized myself over I guess my kids were like, I don't know, 4 and 2.5. And at the time I was going through a separation. The point is it's very difficult, especially as a mom. I think a lot of mothers don't like to spend time on themselves. But given that I was already co-parenting half the time with them or without them, when I did have them, it was hard for me to make that decision to go to the gym with you and put them in daycare, because that meant when they came home, they were going straight to bed. It was already evening, dinner in bed. So, but it was the best thing I did. And I think the one thing that I remembered that's important as a motivator, because I'm all about motivation, and that's another big factor in success, I think, for a lot of people. Maybe not as much as Winston, and other people are just ready to just do the shit, the workout. But there's a lot of other factors that really motivate me, and knowing that I was being a role model for the kids, and them seeing that sacrifice of not spending time with them was important. And today now they're 11 and 10, and I would say they work out with us. In fact, they're pissed off if they can't, if there's some reason that they cannot. And I'm so happy that, and actually the pandemic allowed us to work out with us and create our own home gym, because otherwise we would have just continued to go to the gym. They wouldn't be working out with us. Yeah. Now we do it together. It's a family affair. But I'm just trying to paint this picture that I was in a very poor state. Started just using body weight for squats and one-legged, what do you call it? Lunges. Yeah. Just things like that. And the first set sucked. The second set, not so bad. The third set's like, oh, wow, that's great. It was just, I started to have these aha moments.
We were getting everything firing, like it working.
Yeah. And I, there's such little awareness about the body and what warming up is. It's not just getting warm. It's actually getting things firing. Yeah. To work, to wake up.
Neurological adaptations.
Yeah, I had no idea. This was all new to me. And it wasn't until we did certain exercises and training regimens that were like, oh my God, this should have been hard. And at the end, it was so easy because your body was woken up. So especially as you age, now you add that on top of it, things aren't, and you're out of touch. If you don't use it, you lose it. And I had another example last year where I was in phenomenal shape, the best shape of my life, the lightest, the strongest, everything. And because I'd been living in a house with no stairs for a year, I was going downstairs one day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm having trouble here. This reminds me, rewind 8 years ago when I had trouble going downstairs. I'm like, this hurts and this is hard. Holy shit. Yeah. And it just reminded me, if you don't use it, you lose it. Doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in. So you got to really look at everything well-rounded, but we're not trying to complicate things here. All we're trying to do is share a little bit of our story. So I was fairly new at it, and I've learned a lot. I think I know a lot more than most people today because of my training with you. Because
I never shut up.
Yeah, that too.
Eventually some of it will sink in.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Winston, when he had a bike shop, I knew him back in the day. And I don't know, 15 years ago, I was training for cycling. And that was really phenomenal. What I liked about it was how efficient it was. And I remember after the first month, we did a little bit of a test at the beginning, like a little CrossFit, circuit. And I remember it took me like 8 minutes. And then at the end of the month, it took me 4. And both times I wanted to throw up. But to achieve that massive improved time was really exciting for me. And I was hooked. And I wanted to see what was next. So I can say what Winston knows, and he's helped not only myself, but our friends, Ryan and Kirsten, giving them some tips, and whether it be about supplements, about improving your mood and your energy, things that could really help you, some low-hanging fruit. And with Ryan, he's really come a long way with his workouts, using kettlebells and primarily that and strength training.
It's basically kettlebells and body weight.
Yeah, you can see the difference. And even in myself a couple years ago or last year, you could see it as well. Right. So since my mom's passing in July, it was pretty stressful for me, and I fell off the bandwagon. I think even leading up to her death, we didn't know she was dying, and it was pretty sudden, but she was. And, there was a lot of visits, a lot of doctors, and a lot of Tim Hortons along the way. Seriously, that's kind of, at that point you're on just trying to go. So a lot of bad habits, eating habits mainly, and then loss of activity. And then overall, just continued working from home, a lot of stress. But I think working from home and the move for me, things kind of just changed. I remember a lot about my environment really affects how much walking I will do and exercise. And then you moved in with me, and that's been huge. I mean, I work out less I hardly work out with you, because in the past you came over, all right, let's work out.
Because me coming over to work out was a thing.
It was a motivation for me.
It was part of what we were doing together.
Now I just it's really interesting. Like, this is the psychology, and I think a lot of people do connect to this. Maybe not this exact scenario that it plays out in your life, but so now Ryan comes over 3 days a week. We try and do that at lunch, and I tell you, if he didn't come over those days, I probably wouldn't work out. And
so this is it's an interesting thing, because as a trainer, one of the things for me is figuring out a person's psychology, right? Because I can write the best program in the world, but if you don't do it, it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
Right? It's better to get you to do 70% regularly than perfect never.
Yeah.
So whatever types of things that get people active, doing it, right? Because you like coming up with an optimal longevity program, or optimal muscle building program, or optimal anything, no problem. I could write that shit all day long. But if it either takes too much time for you to do, or you just don't do it.
And I think, as we pivot and go more in this direction, helping others, that'll be a strong focus that I'll be making sure we include is a person's environment, managing your environment, right? Whether it be, and I've talked about this on my other transformation episode, I think, where I talked about, talking to the people in your life to support you and what that support looks like. And it might be that, on these days from this time to this time, mom needs to go out and work out. And that means no interruptions, it's non-negotiable. Or I need you to, be supportive of that and encourage me, so I don't feel guilty I'm not spending time with you. Or say, hey, mom, are you going to go do this? And, just make that a part of the plan. Yeah. Certainly scheduling is huge. Me tying it to like others, social, right? Whether it's a kind of like an accountability thing. But I try, and I don't rely on just one person. I try and tag myself or attach myself to as many people as possible for different things. Now, today I rode and I did it. It's because I love it. Yeah.
You doing cardio, like bike rides, aren't an issue.
It is at the beginning. I will say, like, the first get out the door, it's like,
Because you got to get kitted up. And
I don't know. It's just like, but when I do it, I love it. Yeah. And I feel like a kid. I feel so good. I pop in really good. And I do a lot to music or podcasts, right? And but I'm very mindful and often very concerned about safety. So today I wear a bright yellow, vest. I've got my earphones
Don't go in your ear.
Yeah. It's the Bose Open Shock. Is that what it is?
They're not Bose.
Sorry. What is it?
The Shocks. Like the Open Move.
That's it. Yeah. So I use those because they just sit on the outside of my ear so I can hear.
They're a bone conduction earphone, so they vibrate your jawbone, and that's where you hear, versus just in your ear. So your ear's not obstructed, so you can hear. You
can hear all around you. So from a safety perspective,
they're great for bike riding, walking.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet people, not wearing big, ear pop cans are big, on your ears, and people are targeting you as a woman, know. Being concerned about that. So I felt great. And it, and it's, I used to, and I need to get back into this because even walking's so important. And we'll get in and talk about the different kinds of levels of exercise. But that could be our fifth one, actually, is just low-level mobility. Or it's not mobility, but low-level activity.
Well, yeah,
like walking.
Because that's actually exactly how I prescribe.
Yeah.
Right? A little bit of, in the grand scheme of things, a little bit of strength, right? If you look at my own, like if I'm doing my minimalist program, it's 3 half-an-hour sessions a week. Right, my minimalist program. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing, well, actually, it can even be less. But like, I'm talking personally, what I do when I'm doing, my more maximal program, it's half an hour, 6 days a week. But it's a fucking half an hour in my own house.
Right. But you're talking about strength training. I'm talking about just
yes, but
walking.
But that's what I'm talking about. A little bit of strength, a chunk of cardio, a lot of activity, and that's walking.
Yeah.
Right.
And by that, we mean, just to be very clear with people, how many steps in a day should be targeting?
Basically, I want 10 to 16,000.
Yeah.
Right. Like, like if we look at the studies, 16 and higher is optimal.
Yeah.
Right.
And 10,000, what that translates into is about 2 hours of walking a day, something like that, which is quite doable. I mean, if you have pets and things, you go 3 times a day and then plus all the other walking, boom, you've hit it. Not hard. And so going back to that for a second, and we'll promise you we'll get into the how. And by the way, at the end of this episode, or you can download and see the link, there will be a link to download a free guide on turning back the clock
on livewildradio.com.
And it's the how. It's very specific takeaways. And
it's got a bunch of the whys, too.
And basically, I guess we'll talk about it now since I just did. We're going to cover off the 5 areas or so. So the low-level activity that we just talked about, activity, right? So walking, just steps.
Yep.
We're going to talk about strength and muscle.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about cardio, mobility, and balance.
Yeah.
Those are the 5
things. Pillars of a healthy life.
Yeah. Critical. And then we're going to talk about what's how did you put it?
So your
minimum
dose and your optimal dose.
Yeah.
Like the optimal dose.
He's going to actually give you specifics. So that's what you can download for free.
Yeah.
And that'll be a nice little cheat sheet for you.
Yeah. And we're going to have it set up. And obviously we're not specifically, there's going to be lots and lots of free content. But for people who do want to get, personalized programs, all of that, you'll be able to do that through our website as well.
Yeah.
But the idea comes in is if you only use the free resources we put on our website, you will be able to make life-changing effects.
Yeah, you will.
But then if you're like Ryan and you're like, trying to figure out exactly what to put together is too complicated, just tell me what to do. We can consult and all that kind of jazz, and we got you covered.
Well, and one of the things that we want to do too is have some webinars, some free ones, that we can just talk to people. People can ask questions, and we can pick a topic. I think it'd be great to have a whole session on. We haven't decided in what format, whether it be paid or what. But basically, some people want to go down the rabbit holes and understand fitness philosophy, right? Kind of like when I explained earlier about the warm-ups, what, the mind, the muscle nervous system connection, right? It's a thing. A lot of the aha moments you get from working out and why, when you work out, you should never really be working to your maximal effort.
Except for occasionally.
But a lot of people, that's what they go in to do.
Yeah, and then they burn their nervous system.
A lot of people go to CrossFits, and we're CrossFit training. We were kind of against that because, number one, it promotes competition. People often going in aren't ready for that. They're not well versed unless you're an athlete that's been training for a while. And even still, if you're picking up something new, this competitive spirit is not. It's conducive to injuries is what it's conducive to. Because people are, not to say that you can't get there, but the idea of timing yourself, that again, to my point of maximal effort and how fast can you do something, you're going to get hurt if you're not ready for it.
Yes. Yeah, that's the caveat.
If you're not ready for it.
Yeah, a little bit of hard, right, It's like, think of it as like cooking. The super high intensity, I feel like I'm like gonna like wheeze up a lung or my muscles are on fire. That's just like the sprinkles on top, right? Just going in and just putting the work in, right? And being able to do it again tomorrow is the ice cream on your Sunday.
Yeah. Remember when I did the 10,000 kettlebell swing
Challenge, yeah.
swing challenge? And to break that down, I did that in a month.
Did
and each week
500
I did
swings a day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks.
Right. Took me a half hour. And I did it at a weight that was easier for me. But obviously, if you're doing 500 in a half hour, at first you're tired, but you get massive gains in the first 2, 3. The first ones, your arms are going to fall off, but you adapt. By the end of it, you are so like,
You're just a machine.
you're kind of bored. It's almost meditative. So you hope that you've got good music or something and you just do it. And that in itself gave me massive gains. And I speak about this example because it was ultimately easy for me at the end and throughout.
Yeah, whereas you had the
it was more of a mind challenge
Yeah.
of boredom than it was of anything else.
Yeah. Whereas, but the first workout, you had the highest heart rate I've ever seen you have.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You
And
in
my
the,
grip,
You were in
yeah.
the 190s and you couldn't hold on to the kettlebell.
Yeah.
And towards the, like the 4th week,
And
you're
I-
just like a guy, one of those like birds you'd put on the bird feeder that just looks like it's dipping in the water.
Yeah.
And
I could have, and I think I even went up a weight. The challenge I had was with my, I had a tendon problem with my hand from climbing or jiu-jitsu. So anyways, I couldn't go up in weight. I had to watch that. Long story short is basically that simple, easy at the end is what it was for me.
Yeah.
Program did massive gains.
Yeah.
And when I jumped on a bike, mountain biking in April a couple of years ago, I was like, holy shit, I can't believe how agile I feel and how easy this is and what this gave me in cardio and strength and a whole bunch of areas. Yeah. So, a program, to my point, doesn't have to be, kick you in the gut, keel over, die, sore muscles at all. No, it never does. And you
in the beginning, shouldn't have any of that because you're not skilled enough to push yourself that hard.
You're not. And if you have a bit of muscle soreness, that's normal.
Fine.
That's fine. But to be in a situation where you can't walk and you feel like,
or like your butt hurts sitting on the toilet, or
it's just too much. And who wants that anyways?
Yeah.
I know I didn't. So that's not what kept me coming back. Often it was very funny because when you gave me workouts, I'm like, that's it. You're like, yeah. You just watch. And I think what gave me satisfaction was seeing, because I recorded my weights and I saw the progress of how much more I was doing or how much more weight I was pressing or whatever, right, that I could do. You're like, oh, it is working. Yeah. So that to me was interesting. But
But then let's take it back to the health thing, because one of the cool things is over the last bunch of years, you've had a bunch of blood panels done.
Yeah.
And you're 48 now.
Yeah.
You're like, all of your blood markers are good. Your blood pressure's good.
Well, they've always been pretty decent, no?
Basically, a few of like your blood sugar markers early on when you were more overweight.
Really? Were they higher?
They were. They weren't the greatest. Right? So that's improved. Because when you build some muscle and you use it, you improve insulin sensitivity.
Huh. Yeah, and I am predisposed to diabetes, according to me.
23andMe. Yeah.
Yeah, 43%. And I did a little quiz where I gave my age and my weight, and it said what I eat and smoke and all that, or what I don't do, And then exercise, and it said I have between exercise, I think, and weight. I can't remember what had the greatest impact. I think it was the exercise, actually. Mm-hmm. It went from 8 to 4% chance of getting it because of my lifestyle. And that's what we're talking about, is lifestyle. Yeah. And you said this, or Dr. Peter Attia, said the best, what did he say?
He said basically, because he's a medical doctor, an MD, who over the last decade has moved his whole practice into longevity. So he has a longevity clinic. They do it's basically everything from like exercise to blood panel, all this stuff. But he's one of the world's foremost experts on longevity. And he said, like, as a doctor, there is no prescription medication that I can give you that will have as big of an effect on, all-cause mortality, like improving your chances of staying alive and improving your quality of life, than exercise. Right?
Let's talk about quality of life.
Yeah, because basically there's lifespan and health span.
Yeah.
Lifespan is just how long till the switch is switched, right? You're off. The computer doesn't have power anymore. But health span, like, it's one thing to live to be 90. But if the last 20 years are shit, right? You can barely move, you're in pain all the time, then your health span is only 70 years, And the goal we have, and the goal of everybody in the fitness space for adults that isn't, nice butts and six-pack abs, the 25-year-olds, their whole and our whole drive is to make your lifespan and your health span both longer, right? And try to get your health span as close to your lifespan as possible.
Would you agree that, because I've seen this in my mom, but I don't know if this is across the board, you decreasing your mobility, and she did towards the end of her life around 400 steps a day, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate on that?
Well, so it ends up being a chicken and the egg kind of thing, right? Because why are you moving less, right? It's because you're unable to move. And then why are you unable to move? It's because you moved less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we look like outside of heart disease, stroke, cancer, right? Those are the big three killers, and neurodegenerative diseases. One of the biggest things that people run into is things like falls, right? And if you're fairly frail, you don't have a lot of muscle mass left because it's been decreasing over those decades. You don't have the fast twitch muscle fibers to catch yourself from a fall, so you don't even get hurt, right? But then when you do get injured, you break a bone, your odds, like if you break a hip, if you're over 70, if you break a hip, your odds of surviving the next year are 50-50.
Even the rehabilitation is so long, and you sitting down, even doing less.
Yeah. And you just don't have a lot of slack in the system, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of reserves left.
Yeah.
If you have somebody with bigger muscles, because if you think about it this way, and most people, it's one of those things that makes total sense when you explain it to somebody, but most people never think about it. Obviously, your body has a way of storing fat, right? Body fat. Your body has a way of storing carbohydrate in the form of liver and muscle glycogen, right? There's carbs in your muscles and carbs in your liver. Well, the only way your body can store protein is in your muscles, right? And so when your body needs amino acids for immune system function, repair, it pulls it out of your muscles. Like if you didn't have just eaten.
Yeah.
So you run into the thing where your muscles are, in addition to the nice shapely things that give you the strength to move stuff and move yourself around, they're also your amino acid storage within your body. So you run into the thing.
Again, for immune system and what else?
Basically, like your body uses amino acids for like a ton of different things, right? So, basically if you're injured, you're going to get a lot of muscle breakdown, healing, right? And then they're going to atrophy because you're not moving as well. So if, let's say, there's a threshold where if your muscles go below a certain size and strength, you can't walk. Well, if you get injured, and we're going to call that number, it's just a theoretical thing here, but that we're going to call that number 5. If the size of your muscles go below 5, you can't walk. So the person who has, a muscle size of 10, and then their muscle shrinks by 5 because of the injury, right? Because of atrophy and your body using amino acids for immune system function and all that kind of thing. They lose 5 muscle size, our arbitrary, unit of measure here. Well, they're down to the point they can't walk. But now if your muscle size was 15, you lose 5, you still got 5 before you can't walk. Do you know what I mean? So it's that idea. Like if you get somebody who's like not a giant bodybuilder, that's not what we're talking about. But you could put on 10 or 15 pounds of muscle and you just look fit, right? You put on a ton of muscle since I met you, but you don't look like a bodybuilder, right? I have a fair amount of muscle on me. Right. You see me in a tight T-shirt, you go, oh, that guy's got some shoulders. But I'm not going on bodybuilding stage, not that kind of size. Right. Like Ryan's put on muscle. Right. It's noticeable. It's like, oh, look, you got arms, you got some shoulders. He's still not a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like people,
women often worry that they don't want,
that one it just makes me, my belly hurts. I laugh so much. Well, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to get too big. It's like every guy who's busting their ass trying to get too big can't get too big.
Yeah.
And then I'm constantly hearing women go, like somehow like you touch a weight and you're going to get the cooties. It's like all of a sudden it's like you touched a dumbbell and like muscles are popping out everywhere. Yeah. You couldn't get them even if you want to. Like that idea of being too bulky.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, it ain't going to happen. You have to work your ass off for a little bit. Like don't worry that you're going to get...
You know what I think it is with women? I think it's the pump. I think like say you've been doing something with your arms and you get this pump and you're like, but if I keep doing this, because they're fat, right? Like say that they carry the fat and the muscle and they're like, if I keep doing this, my arms are going to get bigger. They don't realize there's body recomposition that's happening, that will happen.
Yeah.
Because my arms got really sleek and muscular, right, when you got rid of the fat. But I do remember that when I first started, actually, that's what got you really, my arms were bigger than yours.
Yeah.
So that's actually what got you,
Actually doing some arm training.
Yeah, because you're like, wait a second. That's not cool. I think that's because I actually was worried about that myself. I'm like, what? But then I just kept at it and I saw the weight coming off. I'm like, oh, there they are. There's the nice long
sleek muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, it's a thing. It's like, there's a difference between adding some muscle mass so you're healthier.
Yeah.
Right. You're metabolically healthier. You're functionally healthier. You can move better. You're less likely to get injured. You haven't had the decrease in fast twitch muscle fibers that happens with aging, right? Because you've used them or losed them, right?
Yeah.
All of those things. And that's why, I'm such a big fan of the kettlebell swing.
Yeah.
It makes you snappy. It's like a jump without any impact.
So that's why I think in that article, Turning Back the Clock, that we're going to make
E-book.
Available for...
Not an article. It's
sorry,
e-book.
the ebook.
It's even got a cover.
Yeah. The ebook that you're going to make, we're going to make available for download, is if you put in there, like, you'll have the key things about the fast twitch muscle, which is probably like all these, basically the 5 areas that we talked about covers off what you need to be not lacking.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's really important because I think people look at it and go, wow, where do I start? Do I have to get back on the monkey bars with my kids? Or it's like, no.
Yeah, you do. It's good for you.
That's good for you too. Basically, anything that you can't do, embrace it because you will get very good at it quick if you just keep at it. Mm-hmm. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, because think of this. How many times in a movie have you seen like somebody's hanging from a ledge by their fingertips? Happens in movies all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Could you pull yourself up and get back up over the ledge? Like, I will contend that in movies, being able to do pull-ups, like move your body weight, with your arms and everything, is a survival trait.
I will say that I did a body test assessment a couple of years ago, and I did push-ups with my hands. Was it at my temples?
Yeah.
Or higher?
Yeah.
And I did a push-up. Like, not like a butt first.
No.
No, I'm talking like the whole body in one unit pushed up. And she's like, good for you. I was pretty proud of that. So I equate that to my ledge. You know, because you're saying that's like a rock climbing move.
Yeah, it is. But the fact is like, one of the things, like a lot of the guys I've been talking to, right? One of the things that sort of is recurring is like, kind of like, I want to feel like a man again. I want to feel like I can do shit. One guy is like, yeah, it's one of those things. Like I used to be, just kind of like an adventurous guy, da-da-da-da. Well, now I find out like I'm, like if I'm around a bunch of young guys, like I'm scared, right? It's like, I know I couldn't hold my own anymore, right? Like if people want to go do something, it's like, and be smart. Like don't, throw yourself into stuff that's going to get you hurt. Like I'm very judicious about that. Right? Like there's certain things I don't do anymore because the risk to reward ratio isn't there. Right? Risking the injury is not worth the amount of fun I'm going to have. Right? Whereas say mountain biking, I could still get hurt, but like I'm not like bombing the downhills anymore. Right? I pick my way on the downhills. I attack the uphills. But I still ride everything. So it's one of those things where unlike in my 20s, where my balls were bigger than my brain. Now I run into the thing where it's like, everything in life is business. What's the return on investment? What's the risk to reward? And how do you hedge your bets a little bit? And basically, and you'll run into this, like, one of the things that I run into is with clients, like training clients, is I pick movements that will give you a big bang for your buck with less chance of either acute or overuse injuries. Right? Like if I can get you getting the same effect but lifting a lighter weight, there's less compression load on your spine, say with a squat. Right?
Yeah. And even somebody that's injured, there's always a workaround.
Oh, yeah.
There's blood flow restriction bands that can almost mimic 80% of your regular workout by wearing these.
Using 10 to 20% of your maximum weight.
10 to 20% of your maximum. That's pretty huge.
Yeah.
So, I'll talk about something else. My one knee was really buggered up. Huge inflammation, and it was my right knee that's bone on bone. And the one thing you said to me is, Catherine, like, you need to move. Get on the bike.
Yeah.
Get on the bike. I'm like, but it hurts. And he's like, just get on the bike, light, cadence.
Pump some fluid through it.
Yeah, just get the, fluid pumping and all that. And I had a huge regimen. I think I was stretching, my quads because they're so tight. They torque my knee. I was doing the hot cold therapy. Like literally I was in a hot tub, sat and, kneeled in the snow, back, forth, like just a bunch of things to get some progress. And it started to work. I don't know if it was just the activity, if it was the combination of everything, but it's really interesting because it was so painful. I couldn't walk for more than 10 minutes. It was brutal. I was really scared of that. That really was shocking to me because, I have gained some weight since my mom. I think I gained up to 30 pounds since she passed away. I think I'm down to 20, 25, something like that. It fluctuates on holidays. So I'm working on getting it back down. So I would say that, the muscle's still there. The strength is not as much, but it's still good. I'm always stronger than I think. But the weight's there and the movement's been less. So these are the things that where I was at. But I found that the exercise made things better. Yeah. And just on the bit on the knees, I ended up doing cortisone shots in my knees with lubricant because we were going to fucking Disney.
And that's guaranteed a lot of walking.
Yeah, it was 18,000 steps, I think. Anyways, so I was really concerned about that because it was just a month before that I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Or 2 months. And then I thought, okay, I'll try this. And it worked. It took away the inflammation, and I had my knee braces and I exercised. And then we went to Mexico. I had another trip, and then my other knee buggered up because I was walking a dog, and I think the cartilage in between my knees got caught. And it was just like that for days, actually for quite a bit. And I was concerned about that with Mexico. But anyway, so at this point, I actually bought a cane because I was actually having trouble walking.
Yeah.
And so I would wear my knee braces, and I knew I had to lose the weight. The weight would make a big impact. So we went to Mexico, and I ended up walking 18,000, 15,000 steps a day. And I think the combination of the heat, the issue of the meniscal tear just caught between I believe that's what it was. We're still checking that out, but it's gone now. I think it just worked its way out. And, heat therapy.
I think the combination of the heat, lots of activity. We did a lot of like snorkeling, so there's all the kicking, but against no real resistance, right? Very light resistance.
Lots of rest.
A lot of hanging out in hammocks on the beach or
just relaxation.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, like if you think of it, like I'd never been to an all-inclusive resort before.
Oh, this was fun.
Yeah. We ended up going because Catherine's knees were buggered, and what we'd originally had planned was to go on a bike tour in West Virginia. Well, West Virginia is all mountain, so if you got fucked up knees, climbing uphill on a bike for hours at a time was
uphill,
not...
no, flat, yes.
Yeah.
But that would have been boring for you.
Yeah. So we ended up going to an all-inclusive, and it's like, my thing is like, it's not the most adventurous thing in the world, but fuck it. The drinks are included. Let's have fun. And we had a great time. Like, the weather's beautiful.
Oh, super chill, relaxing.
And one thing that was kind of cool for me, and this actually translates into kind of cool for you guys, was... because they had a gym there, with normal gym stuff, right? Like the barbells and the Smith machine and the leg press, and
we haven't done this in years.
Yeah, like I hadn't been using any of that shit in years, so it was just like, okay, I'm a bodybuilder, So I did push pull legs, push pull legs, push pull legs. We were there 10 days. I got 9 workouts in. And it was
one day it was just like, oh, my stomach don't feel too well.
Yeah.
Didn't want to crap all over.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But ran into the thing where then it led me to think, okay, well, how do I do bodybuilding workouts with kettlebells? Like specifically, like within the parameters of what hypertrophy training is. And so it's kind of cool because I've come up with like a whole hypertrophy, like muscle building, bodybuilding program for kettlebells that I've been doing the last month since we've been home. And it's pretty bomb diggity. It's like a half hour a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
But
I thought what I thought was super impressive was, and you did too, was when you went back to the gym, of course you go back and see what you can do.
Yeah.
What has your training got you? You're stronger now than you've ever been.
Not ever been, but since you and I have been together, yeah.
No, but since you and I were powerlifting for a good 3 years, which was pretty good and consistent, you're stronger now from your home gym workouts with kettlebells, bands, basically, than you were when we last left at the gym.
Doing barbells, yeah.
That's pretty awesome because, I mean, that was significant weight that you were pressing and
squatting and
everything. And it's not, and a lot of those movement patterns are pretty strict. Like you can only do them one way.
Yeah.
The thing with kettlebells, it's a fluid motion. So you hit all the muscle
in between, like basically all the stabilizers.
Yeah. There's nothing that's being neglected because you have no choice because of the way you're moving it to touch on all that. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, like one of the things that was cool with it is like I hadn't deadlifted, like touched a barbell in years, and it was easy to deadlift 315 for 5 sets of 5. Like my issue.
Do you remember what you did before?
Basically I would. We had periods, right, where I would go heavier than that.
Yeah.
But because the conditioning is better, I could do like 5 with 315.
Yeah.
For one set.
Yeah. Whereas see anything, not just deadlifts, but more so other stuff. Anything over 5 was cardio to us at that point.
You know.
Yeah. When we were powerlifting.
Yeah. You know, but it was one of those things. Like I could pull heavier weight, and I just didn't go heavier, but I could have. But also, it's the thing. I had no belt. I was doing it in sneakers without, wasn't using my thin deadlifting shoes.
Yeah.
I had no chalk, no nothing. And it was easy.
Yeah.
Right. So it was just one of those things where it's like, that's pretty cool.
Well, it's nice to know that, with the minimal equipment that we have and that it works.
Yeah. Well, and bear in mind too, because the heaviest we have is a pair of 70-pound kettlebells.
Yeah.
I've not done anything heavier than 140 pounds in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And
you've just added volume.
Yeah, and also
movements.
And the more complex movements, yeah. Because if you're doing cleans versus just a deadlift, or double kettlebell swings, they all have just a different component. Like they magnify the weight.
And so it was about 2 years ago that you started with kettlebells, or 2.5?
No, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic. We went full-time kettlebells.
And what did you start off with when you were doing double?
Double was a pair of 24 kilo.
Okay, so you went from 24
to 32.
To 32.
So 28 and then 32. So basically went from like 52 to 70 per hand.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty happy with that.
But of course, you didn't just start doing doubles. You did singles.
Yeah, because when we started, we only had a 45 pound.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And remember, that's where I was coming back from that shoulder issue, like the impinged shoulder. Mm-hmm. So when we started, I had a hard time pressing a 45-pound kettlebell, like particularly with my left arm.
Yeah.
The right was no problem, but the left was all fucked up. So to get to the point where I can do, in a workout, do 50 reps, like multiple sets.
In a half hour?
Yeah. Of clean and press with a pair of 70s with no shoulder pain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
And then the pluses compared to like 3 years ago, I'm filling out my t-shirt a whole lot better.
You are.
The belly's not stretched out and the shoulders are.
Yeah.
So obviously like the cosmetic part came along.
Yeah.
Right. Which is if you lose fat and build a little bit of muscle, you look better.
Yeah. But you also feel lighter. You start jogging and running, and he's pulling a tire for his birthday. I got him a harness. A harness with a big long, just a regular car tire.
Yeah.
And then you've got the kids doing it too. And neighbors are like, is that punishment?
Yeah. Did they do something wrong?
No, they're just training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is basically explaining where we've been, and sort of what you can expect to see a little bit in the future. And then if anybody wants to reach out, if you got fitness questions, winstonchaos@gmail.com. That's my personal email. Why?
Why not live wild? Everything goes.
But we don't have an email address for it.
All right. That's fine.
Okay. Someday we will. But what was the issue?
Everything stays with the business.
But how? Okay, what's the email address for Live Wild?
I was just thinking on our website they can drop like people go to the website.
But they can't send an email. Right, like it's kind of convoluted.
They can't send an email. People send emails all the time.
They don't. They send the contact thing.
They put messages in there.
I know, but then they got to find it.
Okay,
but
that's fine. Don't worry about this. I'll just delete this part.
Okay.
Edit this part out. Don't
Okay,
worry
so
about it.
where are we?
So just repeat that. You got a question?
Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, my email address is winstonchaos, chaos, @gmail.com. I am happy to answer your questions. We want to start... Catherine and I had actually talked about a thing about, like, making Waterloo Region... this was sort of separate.
Oh, yeah.
Making Waterloo Region the healthiest region in Canada.
Yeah.
We had this idea. It was sort of about with the hospital foundation and stuff like that. But, we thought it'd be kind of a cool project.
Yeah.
But, what I want to start with is let's make our listeners the healthiest people.
Yeah.
We
can help you.
Yeah. And that's sort of the thing. Like, you have to do the work, but we have simple approaches. Like, you just do it. And a lot of it, with a minimal investment, you can do it at home.
Yeah. So I think what's going to be coming out next are things like how to build your home gym. We'll revisit that. Probably some downloads or some ebooks or something around that if you want all the details. Yeah. I think that, getting us on live webinars and you guys can come in and ask us, we'll talk about specific things, or we could have some live Q&A.
Yeah.
I've also thought about the idea of just having like monthly community sessions for members, where people can ask questions and, pick our brains. Yeah. Right. I think the big thing I'm a big advocate for is just because I've always struggled with this is just the motivation and managing your environment, right, successfully, doing things that work so that you can implement your plan and execute it versus Winston's iron well, which I don't think a lot of people have.
Well, to me,
Ryan's doing well.
Yeah.
But I know that him coming here helps him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I want everybody to think about. Do you want to be able to pick up your grandkids and play with them? Do you, want to get up out of a chair? Do you want to Elvis it and die on the toilet? Don't do a bunch of recreational drugs. But it's those kinds of like hard things that nobody wants to sort of really think about. Right. But like picture yourself in those situations.
But they should think about, they should look at their health today and how it's changed.
Yeah. Like,
those are motivation.
Are you as good as you were 20 years ago? Right. And if the answer isn't yes, or I'm better, right, then you run into that thing. Like it's so preventable, and
you can turn it around. That's what we're talking about.
And at any point, right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one of those things. It's like, get a bit of a pump, work up a bit of a sweat, breathe a little bit heavy, hug your wife, hug your kids, have a good mental health. It's pretty straightforward.
Be more confident.
Yeah.
Look
better in your underpants. Unless you're going on beaches that are underpants optional. Then don't forget your sunscreen. And on that note, I am Winston.
I'm Catherine.
And don't forget to work hard.
And play dirty.